You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show. The preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There, and ladies sings it, that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to check our episode. We had our 4th billionaire on the show last week. Be sure to check that out as well. And all the amazing authors, brilliant minds that we have on the show, all the smartest people. And none of them are me, because I'm just an idiot on the show with the mic. Today we have another amazing multi-book author on the show. His hottest new book is coming out March 19th, 2024. It's called Cape Rage, a Danny Barrett novel. Ron Corbett is on the show with us today. We're going to be talking to him about book 2 of his 2-book series so far. We'll find out if there's more. We'll be talking to him about his amazing book and everything that's inside of it. Ron is a writer, journalist, broadcaster, and co-founder of Ottawa Press and Publishing, a lifelong resident of Ottawa. That's in Canada, for those of you who don't know maps. Ron... I came off just as good as I thought I would in my head.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
There you go. Ron's writing has won, you got to help the Gen Zers out. Ron's writing has won numerous awards, including 2 national newspaper awards. He has been a full-time columnist with both the Ottawa Citizen and the Ottawa Sun, once again, in Canada. He is the author of 7 nonfiction books, including Canadian bestseller The Last Guide and critically acclaimed First Soldiers Down, about Canada's military deployment to Afghanistan. The first book in his Frank Yakabuski mystery series. Is it Yakabuski? Am I saying that right?
I said that name just so I can hear Americans try to pronounce it. You can Yakabuski, any way you want to try to.
There you go, Frank Yakabuski. I think I had a bookie named that.
Yakabuski.
I think I had a bookie named that. His mystery series was nominated for Best Paperback Original Edgar Award, and he's live on the show. Welcome to the show, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate having you. Congratulations on the new book. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs to stalk you?
RonCorbettBooks.com. That's the best address.
There you go.
Right there. You can get the Frank Yakabuski, and you can have fun with it. That's a Polish name, if you haven't already figured it out. Frank Yakabuski. You can have fun with the last name. People up here, they say it all sorts of different ways, too.
Do they?
Have some fun. Look up a James Caan video on his favorite word. Starts with F, 4 letters. Find the various ways James Caan said he could pronounce that word. You can have just as much fun with Yakabuski.
It's such a great word.
Yes, it is a great word.
There you go.
We've had some fun with it in your green room just before the show started.
There you go. That's all we did. We just Yakabuski'd it up.
Yeah.
There you go.
CorbettBooks.com. That is everything Yakabuski and the Danny Barrett series, which is what we're here to talk about today.
There you go.
Rage, the newest book is out. Yeah, right. March 19th, next Tuesday.
So give us a 30,000 overview of what's in the new book.
The 30,000 word. That's good. I was asked to do an interview recently that asked for the elevator pitch on Barrett, and I told him he shouldn't play baseball in an elevator, and I refused to do that interview. They're still waiting for it. Danny Barrett. I don't know how old you are, Chris. Remember an old TV series called Wise Guy? Had Ken Wall on it.
No, I'm only like 30.
You're only 30. So
No, I'm.
You know who Deborah Harry is? Tell me.
I know who Deborah Harry is. Blondie. Yeah. I had a crush on her when I was a kid.
A Wise Guy. And how do I tell you? Ken Wall was a star, and he imploded. It was a shame. There's only 2 seasons of that show. Ken Wall was an undercover cop. Danny Barrett is an undercover cop. This is the whole premise of the series. He's an undercover cop. He's a Detroit cop. People seem to get this mixed up because the first 2 books, he was working for the FBI. He's not an FBI agent. He's a Detroit cop that brought down a lot of crooked Detroit cops. I don't know where I got that idea from. But brought down a lot of crooked Detroit cops. So he becomes toxic. He can't work for the Detroit Police Force anymore. Just before he's about to get kicked off from the Detroit Police Force, another an FBI agent says, you've got special skills. Maybe I can use you on this case I'm investigating.
Mm-hmm.
So he becomes an undercover specialist, an undercover police specialist. He gets called in to other police cases, which is exactly the premise for Wise Guy. I stole the premise. So this undercover cop moves from case to case when they need an undercover cop with special skills. So Cape Rage is the second one in the series. So it's the newest one in the series. It will be a series. It takes place in the Pacific Northwest, not far from the Canadian border. And it's got some great villains. I love villains. Every novel I've written has some really good villains in it. This one has some great villains. And that is, I guess, the elevator pitch on Cape Rage. He's there. It's a criminal family. He's on an island. It's kind of like a locked room, but I have a locked island mystery. He's on this island. He's undercover. This family is suspected of a bank robbery where 2 security guards were killed. He has to find evidence that this happened. He's on this island. Everybody suspects him from the word get-go that he's a cop. Things get tense. This family, after the bank robbery, killed one of their fellow robbers for reasons you have to read the book to find out. This fellow robber is not dead. He's annoyed. He's coming after them. There's a femme fatale. It's a noir story, so there has to be a femme fatale in there. A great femme fatale. And it all comes together in one night that a lot of bad things happen in one night. Cape Rage. There's the elevator pitch, I guess, for the story.
There you go. Sold. We'll buy it.
There you go. How much is it?
Right off the internet. Right off the elevator pitch.
E-book is cheaper. There you go. But yeah, print book in stores. Well, I gather now they say March 19th, which is always a ruse, right? You can probably buy it now. Buy it now, Chris.
Let's see. You can pre-order it now. You can't buy it, but you can pre-order it. It's according to. I mean, it might be different in Canada if you're selling up there.
They say pre-order it, but it's not like it magically appears like mushrooms on March 19th.
That's true.
Going to Barnes and Noble this weekend, and there might be a copy there. I don't know.
On audiobook, it does. It lets you know the moment it drops. I think on Kindle too, but I like the hard copies because there's something about the tactile nature of it that I still enjoy. Like I still enjoy a newspaper.
It is hardcover. It is. It's released as a hardcover. There's no paperback, so it is a hardcover. That the March 19th date is the hardcover, I guess, release date.
Plus, you can always keep a bookmark in it. Figure out Kindle. I'm like, where the hell was I when I read this thing? So there you go. So was the inspiration? What was some of the inspiration that came to you to write the book and put it in this setting? I mean, obviously, if you put it on a island that he's kind of trapped on, that kind of raises a special level of suspense and tension, doesn't it?
It does. That was the whole idea. Like put him on an island. Well, locked room mystery is a term. Get everybody in a room and lock them up, see what happens.
That's what we do on Fridays around here.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you. I have no doubt. So that's the whole idea. Put them on an island and see what happens. Yeah. It's been done before. This idea has been done before. It's called Danby Island. That's the name of the family, the criminal family, Danby Island. And I love that idea. Like just as and people get suspicious of them, and it's how do you get off the island? People are very suspicious of them, so it adds to the tension, it adds to the suspense, and at the same time, as I said, this criminal, I love the criminal. The guy's name is Henry Carter.
Wow,
and he's bad. He's about as badass as you could imagine. So when he's shot in the back, he's left for dead. He doesn't die. He wakes up. He suspects his wife. He's an in-law. This criminal family. It's a family. And it's his wife, Tess Danby, who he suspects is the one that shot him. So when he wakes up, he's not a fan of the Danbys. So he's coming and he's 1,000 miles away. It's where they left him for dead. So he has to get back there. So it's a bloody trail he leaves getting back to the island. So it's kind of I thought it was a neat idea. So as the tension mounts on the island, there's a really bad guy making his way to the island. So you got tension meeting tension. And it all comes together in this one night. It all kind of explodes on this one night. So yeah, it certainly adds to the tension when you're stuck on an island with a madman coming your way. And
yeah.
Did I mention no boat? No boat.
No boats?
You've got some problems.
There you go. So the tension builds. You've got the scenario there, and you know that it's going to climax into something. So, which is also Fridays around here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We're going to come back to the book, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you grew up. When did you become a writer? When did you first know you had the skill and ability and love to write? And how did you get down to this field of writing your own books?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Well, I am from Ottawa, as you mentioned, from which is the capital of Canada, but it's maybe you just know the hockey team. The capital of the country, nobody cares. Yeah, it's the capital of Canada.
I mean, it's Canada.
I
No
thought
one
it was
cares.
Toronto. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's Ottawa. The hockey team. You're from Las Vegas, right? You live in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we have a hockey team.
Yeah, you're the defending Stanley Cup champions, are you not?
Yeah, I
You're
think.
not even gonna make the playoffs this
Did
year.
we win 2 years there? I don't know.
Last year.
I don't follow it. I'm a Raiders fan.
You're a
I follow
Raiders
football. Yeah, the only time, anytime I go to,
a great season, didn't you?
anytime I go to a hockey match, a boxing match breaks out. That's an old joke.
People know Ottawa's a hockey team. The Senators, so
Yeah.
it isn't a hockey team. It used to be a hockey team. They still play. Anyway, so I'm from Ottawa, born and raised. I still live in Ottawa.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to write. Treasure Island, actually, it's kind of cool.
Treasure Island?
It starts off with a line from Cape Rage, we must go on because we can't go back. It's a cool Treasure Island. We must go on because we can't go back. We're stuck. Anyways, I've always wanted to be a writer. I was lucky, and I became a journalist. And I had a cool job when newspapers were doing really well. Does anybody remember that?
What's a newspaper? Can you lay the foundation for that?
You're killing me, Chris. You're killing me. But when newspapers were doing really well, I was a city columnist. I had the perfect job. I had the job I always wanted. That's the job that Jimmy Breslin had. That's the job that Mike Royko had. It was the perfect job. And I had it at both of the newspapers in Ottawa. And Ottawa's, being the capital, it's a city of 1 million people. So it had decent newspapers, and I had the page 5 column for both those newspapers. We were rocking and rolling for a little while.
Oh yeah.
And I wrote crime. I wrote a lot of crime. In the Frank Yakubuski books, in particular, there's 4 of those books. There's only 2 of the Danny Barrett, but a lot of the stories you'll read in those novels are real stories. Like some of the bad people you read in those stories are people that I interviewed. They really were. They're real people, and yes, they were that bad.
Wow.
Some of the stories were real. So
truth is stranger than fiction.
I spent half my time in court getting paid for being in court. I was not one of those people that got dragged into court.
That's the better part of the court to be on.
That's the better part of it. So I got paid for being down there. I used to hang out at the cop shop, again, getting paid for being there, not dragged in the cop shop. Newspapers used to have an office in the cop shop. It's hard to believe. Nowadays, they won't even talk to you, but there used to be a time when you hung out.
That's because you're usually busting them for something.
Yeah, well, there used to be an office. It's hard to believe nowadays. Nowadays they won't even let you hear their scanners. I remember the day when they took our scanners away. Said you can't do that. There's privacy reasons. Come on.
Privacy reasons. They just didn't want to.
Yeah, but they used to give us scanners. Anyways, now they keep you 20 feet away from everything, and there's privacy.
Oh yeah. Well, I think more so they don't want to get caught busting heads of all the wrong people. They like to bust heads on sometimes. I've seen some of that.
Well, yeah, certainly. Well, maybe there's reasons they keep us 20 feet away, but
yeah.
So anyway, that was a background. I was a newspaper journalist for a lot of years. When newspapers died, I went into radio. Like you were making jokes just before we started here. So when newspapers started doing not so well, I went over to radio, and I had an open line show, which is fun in a political town. There's always lots of stuff to talk about. So I had an open line show for about 10 years, and I wrote.
Was it political?
Just to bring it right up, I wrote the first Yakubuski book in 2017. So
okay,
that's what I did.
And so, do you pull a lot from that crime writing experience of being a newspaper journalist?
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
you go.
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
You go.
That's not all of it, but yeah, I do. As I said, Frank Yakubuski, who's the cop in that, I've met that guy. Not that guy, but I've certainly a composite of that guy. He's an RCMP guy up north for sure.
Wow. There you go. Well, don't tell him. He'll sue you, or I don't know, ask for a buck
he'll
or
keep me 20
something.
feet away.
Yeah. You don't want to get that guy near you.
Yeah, but so some of the stories are real. Absolutely, some of the stories are real stories or cases I've covered in court.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they come from real stories.
There you go. Well, it's a rich. I mean, people. What's the old line? You write what you know, and so that helps. We've had people like yourself on that did crime, that did crime. I just accused you of
Probably
doing
have.
crime. Well,
If you've had four billionaires on, Chris, you've had people on that have done crime. Come on.
Probably, yeah, that's true. And what was the old line? Any man who's built great wealth has probably done a great crime. I don't know who said that. I think it was Bill Gates.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I know the line you're talking about.
Getting back to the book, Danny Barrett, tell us a little bit more about him, because you seem to really love your evil characters in your books. Tell us more about Danny Barrett.
Well, I'm looking forward to writing more about Danny Barrett. As I said, he was a Detroit cop, and what happened to him was the first line of the first book was called "The Sweet Goodbye," the title of the first book, and the opening line was the first time I worked undercover, the first person I arrested was my brother. Which I still think was a great line. I think that line got me the book deal with Berkeley. And that's what happened. He was, an honest cop. His brother was not an honest cop. And there were a lot of crooked cops. They're Detroit police officers. And by the way, I'm not picking on Detroit. I could have picked a large American city. I happened to pick Detroit.
They have a lot of corruption from.
I'm somewhat familiar with Detroit. It's close to Canada. It's close to the Canadian border, obviously. So I'm somewhat familiar with the city from visits to Detroit.
They have a few issues there, so I can see you're not stretching the truth too far when it comes to corruption, I think.
Yeah, but I had to pick a city, so I picked Detroit. I was also somewhat familiar with the with Michigan, Upper Peninsula in Michigan. I'd spent some time there, and this is part of Barrett's background. So his background, he gets convinced that his brother is doing bad, that a lot of cops are doing bad. They're, connected with, a criminal gang, and they're really bad, and he should do the right thing and bring these guys down. So he gets talked into that. He does that. And after the case is finished, to his surprise, he discovers that nobody wants him on the police force anymore because he's
the Serpico.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of thing. So thinking that his career is over, that he's no longer in law enforcement, much to his surprise, somebody contacts him, an FBI officer from another city completely, and says, listen, we've been following the case. You seem to have special skills. You're talented. I can use you. And that sets up him as an undercover police officer. Again, getting back to that corny, and if anybody's listening, if they're familiar with that show, Wise Guy, I had all this. You ever had this thought in your mind? You remember something in your mind, and when you go and actually look at it or see it or listen to it again, you realize it's not as good as you remember.
My first 10 marriages.
Perhaps. I remember Wise Guys being really cool. I think it was because of Deborah Harry and Tim Curry in the second series. They were both in the second series. When I started coming up with the Danny Barrett idea, I found some episodes of Wise Guy, and it was a corny show. And Ken Wall was not a good actor. But that was the premise of it. He was an undercover cop who moved around to different cases because he was a good undercover cop. But
he was a bad actor. Was that part of the plot of the movie, or is that just your assessment?
Well, there are people like that. I'm not completely imagining that. I'm sure it's the same in the States, but I've covered court cases, like biker cases. This is partially where I got the idea from, too. And there's biker cases that I've covered in court, and they'd have an RCMP undercover officer who'd get flown halfway across the country, like the guy would be stationed in Montreal, but he'd work a case in Moncton, which is in the Maritimes, but very French, and he'd go undercover with a biker gang. Like, he'd just show up and nobody would know the guy. And, 2 years later, it turns out that he was an RCMP officer. So that guy came from Montreal and he went to Moncton to work undercover. So that was his job. He was an undercover specialist.
There you go.
So that's what I've done with Barrett. And that's the whole premise. Now, the neat thing about him, and what I'm hoping to explore in future books, is that he did betray his brother. And you can't feel good about that. Like, no matter how bad your brother is, that's gotta bother you, unless you're a complete.
Sociopath.
It's not. It's, betrayal is. It's gotta bother you a little bit.
Unless
So
it's fun. I mean,
it's fun, or unless your brother is a complete. You hate the guy.
yeah, that's pretty much. I know
But
you mix it with
betrayal
it.
is a theme to Barrett, and it's explored a little bit in Cape Rage, and I hope to explore it a bit more. I guess it's complicated. Let's just leave
It's
it at that.
complicated. Yeah.
He's going to be a little bit of a complex character. It's not straightforward, although at times it seems like it's straightforward with him. He's quite a badass. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It seems like, Chris, you strike me as somebody who might know what I mean by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
I have never gotten that shaving, but there's still time. I usually go with the tape and wax.
Well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a way of fighting. And this comes, you mentioned journalism. This comes from a story I worked on. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is
It's a fighting thing.
it's a fighting thing.
I thought this was
is a way of fighting where you do it on the ground. You drop to your feet, you bring your opponent to the ground, and you go spider crazy on the guy.
I thought we were waxing something. So I don't know.
No, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Barrett is a specialist in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
There you go.
I covered stories long ago in Canada. This is Canada, but they tried to ban mixed martial arts. It's funny that UFC is such a big deal, but Canada,
They tried to ban it here too.
Yeah, they did. Of course, yeah, they did. And I covered this one of the first mixed martial bouts in Canada. It was held on Indian territory, Akwesasne, in Mohawk a reserve, because they're Mohawks and screw you. So they held this big event. But most of the event, they brought in these fighters from Brazil, and they all did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's something to see. They tackle the guy, and then they just go crazy on the guy. It's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there's a whole scene in here where he goes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on an entire bar room. So, he's complicated, but, don't turn your back on the guy.
There you go. That sounds like my time in prison.
I don't want to go there. I'm not going there with you, Chris. I'm not going there.
You don't want to go to prison with me. No one should be going to prison. Don't do that, people. I never went to prison, by the way. For those of you who are going to write me on the show afterwards, I didn't know you went to prison. They're jokes, people. God damn it. It's a funny show.
I was going to give you a hand clarifying that.
I'm still, I have a rule. Don't do anything that ends you up in prison. That's kind of that's my one rule in life that I try to stick by. If the cops pull me over for, I don't know, whatever I'm doing in a car, I haven't been pulled over in like 50 years. It's probably because I'm white. I just go, yes, sir, no, sir. I never piss off the cops,
Never.
Anybody who has the legal right to murder me and get away with it, I follow orders really good. I know my place in the food chain at that point.
Don't ask a lot of questions either. Why don't need to know.
Yeah. I just okay. I didn't use my turn signal. I'm a horrible person, and you're right, and I'm wrong. And how much do I got to pay for this? So there you go. Tell us about what's in the future for you with this book series and the other book series you're working on. Do you have anything in the can? Like sometimes authors like yourself, their multi-books will have stuff in the can ready to come out, or what's the future hold?
Well, I'm playing around with the third Danny Barrett one right now. I spend the last few years I've been spending a fair bit of time in Tampa during the winter. I am Canadian. I'm not a complete idiot. I'd like to get out of here during the winter. And I've been spending the last few years down. Well, it's in Largo, which is the Gulf Coast.
Ooh, Key Largo,
St. Pete. Do you know the area at all, Chris?
Well, no, I know I'm a fan of Bogey, Humphrey Bogart, and he did a movie called Key Largo.
Yeah,
big fan.
Yeah, so Largo is not Key Largo, but it's
it's halfway there.
It's halfway there. You're absolutely right. It's on the Gulf Coast between Clearwater and what am I thinking of? At St. Petersburg. So it's on the Gulf Coast. Gulf Coast. Last few years, I've been spending a fair bit of time there. And I'd love to set the next Danny Barrett one in that area, but more the Tampa area, which is very close to Tampa.
Yeah.
I saw Tom Brady's last football game. By the way, my
The one with the Patriots or the one with the Tampa Bay?
Fan, right?
Huh?
You're a Raiders fan, are you not?
Yeah, I'm a Raiders fan.
You're a Raiders fan. You had a great season, didn't you?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be bringing that up.
We haven't had a great season in, I don't know, 30 years. We haven't had a great season since that fucker Tom Brady stole that Super Bowl from us with that tuck rule crap. So I'm still sore over that. 92. So.
I was a Raiders fan when they lost at Tampa. I'll never forget that game. Tampa when who was the coach for Tampa at the time? I just drawn a blank on that.
I'm not sure.
It was Gruden. It was Gruden. Gruden was a coach for Tampa when they destroyed the Raiders in that Super Bowl. That was the first time somebody was mic'd up. Who was the player that was mic'd up for the Raiders? And
was it Warren Sapp?
At halftime.
No, that Warren was with Tampa. But he
anyway,
eventually.
I want to set the next Danny Barrett one around the Tampa area. I've got
there
an
you
idea on that. You know, a lot of the circuses used to winter around the Tampa area, around Sarasota, and there's actually a town called Gibsonton. Look it up, Chris. You'd enjoy this. But the circuses, they travel around all during the summer and the spring and the fall, and in the winter they would get. This is when they all traveled on trains and everything. And in the winter, they would park. They would stay somewhere for a couple months, and they stayed around Florida in Sarasota and Tampa. And there's a town called Gibsonton, which was founded by circus people, carny people, more than circus. There's a distinction, I now realize, between circus performers, which were the elite, trapeze acts, you know, they were the top of the food chain, and the carny people, which were your freaks. And the carny people founded this town called Gibsonton. And there's remnants. As a matter of fact, the Carnival Association of America, there actually is an association. They have one of the biggest bars you've ever freaking seen. And It's still there. It's still there in Gibsonton, Florida.
Sounds like a great place for a book.
The last few years researching. I hope it would be the next Danny Barrett book.
There you go.
And anyways, it's cool. I quite like Florida.
Yeah.
Thing about Florida, it's a great place. Anyways, I've fallen in love with Florida.
There you go.
And so, the next Danny Barrett one could be in Gibsonton, Florida. I've already got a plot when the circus came to town. And that's going to be kind of the plot of the next Danny Barrett one. And I'll just leave it at that. So
you can call it Circus Rage.
I've got a few things. Midway Angel Blues is one thing. Circus, just call it
Circus Rage. Just keep playing on that Cape Florida. Rage title.
Gibsonton, Florida. They passed a bylaw. Probably only town. What other town would have? They passed a bylaw allowing you to keep an elephant.
Well, I mean, that's important.
There's a bylaw there allowing you to keep an elephant in your backyard, and it's still on the books. If you have an elephant, you don't know what to do with it. You want to go to Gibsonton, Florida.
Wow, and have an elephant. There you go. So, any final thoughts and pitches out as we go out on the book to get people to order it up and all that good stuff?
Well, Cape Rage has gotten some great. Well, yeah, sure. I'll put on my salesman's hat. Cape Rage has gotten some great reviews. Publishers Weekly, Library Journal has given it some great reviews. If anybody listening now, if you're a CJ Box fan, he gave it a great review. It's here. I'll give you a little thing here.
There you go.
CJ Box, Ron Corbett is the real deal. He gave it a wonderful review. Nick Petrie, Mark Cameron. I got a New York Times review. This is for The Sweet Goodbye. Dynamite new series, a book filled with grit and heart. What more can you ask? I can ask for more. Buy the book.
Buy the book.
We need books.
We need more residuals, damn it.
Yeah, we need residuals. So seriously, I think it's, I like noir. And people, some of these reviews have picked up on it. Who was it? Mark Cameron. Shades of John D. MacDonald. John D. MacDonald, he's a Florida writer. This one just touched my heart. And Dashiell Hammett, two of my favorite writers. I didn't pay the guy to do that. He just picked up on it. I think it's a good story. If you like those writers, you'll enjoy Cape Rage. I think it's a good story.
There you go.
March 19th.
The Sweet Goodbye got a ton of reviews. 395 ratings, 3.9 Goodreads, 712 ratings on Goodreads. I don't know why they just don't merge these because Amazon owns Goodreads. but very popular book. People loved it. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Ron. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
Again, RonCorbettBooks.com is the best site. There's Facebook and other stuff there. Go to that site. That's the primary site. You can go to other sites from there. But RonCorbettBooks.com. Also, people have been working on that site over the weekend because we knew you were on your show today. So go to that site, RonCorbettBooks.com. And Chris, this has been a lot of fun, man. So
it's been a lot of fun to have you. Please come back for your next ones, whichever series is rolling out there. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I will. It's a lot of fun. Thanks very much for having me.
Please do. Thanks, Ron. I'll be interested to hear how you like the Florida thing. You know, abandoning the old Canada.
Everybody in Canada abandons Canada during the winter.
Do they really? Well, can you blame them? I mean, even the Bears. Yeah, it's cold, damn it. So, folks, order up the book wherever fine books are sold. Remember, stay out of those alleyway bookstores because you might need a tetanus shot, or you might get mugged. Order it up wherever fine books are sold. You can pre-order it. It's March 19th, 2024. It will be available. Cape Rage, a Danny Barrett novel, will be out, and read it while you can. That way you're up to date, and get the other book, the previous one too. That way you're ready for that third book when it comes out. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places we're on the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next